Joan of Arc was history's ultimate divine warrior maiden. She claimed to hear the direct voices of angels. She completely broke the bloody siege of Orléans. She led massive royal armies at just 17. She successfully restored a broken king to his throne. She fiercely defied a corrupt international courtroom. She was cruelly burned alive at the stake. Her incredible courage permanently unified an entire fractured nation. Today, she remains a legendary saint of global history. This is the breathtaking chronicle of her sacred fury. The legendary warrior maiden was born around the year 1412 in the tiny, war-torn French village of Domrémy. She grew up during the devastating Hundred Years' War between the royal houses of France and England. Her parents were humble peasant farmers who raised her to be deeply religious and skilled in domestic work. At the young age of 13, she began experiencing vivid mystical visions in her father's quiet garden. She claimed that Saint Michael, Saint Catherine, and Saint Margaret spoke directly to her soul amid bright lights. The heavenly voices explicitly ordered her to drive the invading English army completely out of her homeland. They also commanded her to lead the young Prince Charles to the sacred city of Reims for his royal coronation. Determined to fulfill her divine mission, the teenager traveled through enemy territory to meet the local governor. She successfully convinced the skeptical governor to grant her an armed royal escort to the prince's court. If you love these incredible tales of pure warrior spirit, please like this video right now. Joan traveled in male soldier clothing to protect herself from danger during the perilous 11-day journey. Prince Charles decided to test her by disguising himself among his courtiers when she first entered the palace. Joan walked directly past the fake kings and immediately picked out the true prince from the crowded room. She privately whispered a secret sign to Charles that completely convinced him of her genuine divine inspiration. The French military leaders desperately needed a miracle because the strategic city of Orléans was completely surrounded. Charles officially granted her white steel armor, a holy banner, and supreme command over his demoralized troops. She claimed a mystical sword was hidden behind the altar of a local church and sent men to uncover it. The soldiers dug exactly where she predicted and found the ancient blade covered in centuries of rust. She rode straight to the front lines of Orléans, holding her white banner high to inspire her weeping men. Her presence completely transformed the terrified French soldiers into an unstoppable, aggressive fighting force. She aggressively led a series of fierce frontal assaults against the heavily fortified English stone outposts. During a brutal battle, an English arrow pierced deep through her shoulder, causing massive physical pain. Joan pulled the arrow out with her own bare hands and immediately charged back into the bloody combat. The inspired French army completely broke the historic siege of Orléans in just 9 miraculous days. She then launched a rapid military campaign along the Loire Valley, smashing every English army in her path. She successfully cleared the heavily guarded road to Reims, fulfilling the second part of her angelic prophecy. Prince Charles was officially crowned King Charles VII in a magnificent ceremony, with Joan standing proudly beside him. However, the newly crowned king grew deeply cautious and hesitated to let her capture the capital city of Paris. During a fierce skirmish at Compiègne, Joan stayed behind to protect her retreating soldiers from being captured. The panicked town governor pulled up the drawbridge too early, leaving Joan trapped outside the heavy city walls. A Burgundian soldier pulled her off her horse, and she was quickly sold to the furious English military leaders. The English were determined to prove her victories were born of witchcraft rather than divine favor. They placed her on trial in the city of Rouen before a biased court of pro-English church officials. The corrupt judges locked her in a dark prison cell and chained her tightly to a massive wooden beam. Make sure to subscribe to Stickman Chronicles because we drop epic history content every single day. She spent months facing hostile theologians who tried to trick her into admitting she practiced dark sorcery. The court guards constantly tormented her, but she maintained her absolute dignity through intense prayer and fasting. She routinely demanded that her trial records be sent directly to the Pope in Rome for an unbiased review. The corrupt judges denied her request because they wanted to finish her political execution as quickly as possible. They spent days questioning her about the specific appearance, clothing, and speech patterns of the heavenly angels. Joan cleverly told them that the light of the angels could not be captured by mere human words alone. The judges asked if the angels hated the English, and she replied that God simply favored the French in this war. She openly predicted that the English would lose all their French territories within 7 years of her death. This prediction came completely true when the French army successfully recaptured Paris and expelled the remaining invaders. The court finally used her choice of male clothing as the primary legal reason to condemn her to death. They claimed that a woman wearing armor was an absolute violation of historical religious laws and traditions. Joan refused to compromise her identity, stating that she wore the armor to protect herself in prison camps. She was denied the right to receive the holy sacrament of communion during her agonizing months of isolation. The judges grew incredibly frustrated because her simple, honest answers completely outmatched their complex theological traps. Local citizens gathered outside the prison daily, amazed by the teenage girl's unyielding mental endurance against her captors. She repeatedly stated that she answered only to God and refused to take oaths that violated her divine revelations. The trial records reveal that she correctly predicted the exact location of multiple English strategic troop movements from her cell. When English soldiers threatened her with physical torture, she confidently replied that pain would never change her testimony. The biased prosecutors intentionally hid key pieces of evidence that clearly proved her mental and spiritual purity. She spent her final night writing a deeply emotional farewell message to her loving mother back in Domrémy. The executioners purposefully constructed the wooden stake to be unusually tall so the massive crowd could watch her burn. The tragic sight of her execution caused several English soldiers to weep openly and declare they had burned a saint. A frantic royal scribe threw his inkwell into the dirt, shouting that the English nation was permanently cursed for this murder. Her legal rehabilitation process years later included sworn testimony from over 100 close childhood friends and military comrades. Old warriors recalled that she never personally killed a single enemy soldier, preferring to hold her sacred banner high. The official records proved that she accurately predicted her own wounding at Orléans several days before the arrow struck. Her family was officially granted noble status and a unique coat of arms featuring an upright sword and royal lilies. French generals used her final battlefield strategies to successfully modernize their entire artillery and fortress siege units. The city of Orléans still holds an annual grand festival to celebrate the exact day the teenage Maiden saved their people. Her original condemnation document was officially shredded and burned by the high courts to completely clear her historical memory. Medical historians still debate the potential psychological or neurological causes behind her incredibly vivid divine visions today. On May 30, 1431, the 19-year-old girl was tied to a massive wooden stake in the Rouen marketplace. She calmly asked a sympathetic priest to hold a high crucifix before her eyes as the flames rose up. She loudly shouted the name of Jesus repeatedly through the thick smoke until her breathing completely stopped. The executioner threw her ashes directly into the Seine River to prevent anyone from collecting her relics. Her tragic martyrdom deeply horrified the public and ignited a massive, permanent patriotic fire across France. King Charles VII launched a new investigation 20 years later that completely cleared her of all crimes. She successfully proved to medieval Europe that divine strategic brilliance was entirely independent of noble birth. She single-handedly shattered the rigid military traditions of her era through absolute, undisputed battlefield inspiration. Her name became an eternal legend, celebrated for centuries in countless global theatrical productions and epic literature. During the modern era, her powerful likeness became one of the most prominent symbols of French national identity. Historians still study her recorded court transcripts to understand her incredible mental strength and strategic impact. Her inspiring legacy directly paved the way for a unified France to win the long 100 Years' War. Today, vibrant historical statues and grand Gothic cathedrals celebrate her incredible legacy across the globe. Her epic life continues to heavily inspire major characters in global anime shows, complex video games, and modern films. She successfully rose from an obscure peasant daughter to become the most iconic female warrior in Western history. She demonstrated that a teenage girl's sheer faith could completely terrify an entire army of hardened invaders. Her unique blend of defensive focus and aggressive siege tactics heavily influenced French military doctrine for generations. She spent her entire youth working tirelessly to defend the freedom and the ultimate honor of her homeland. The master inspirational leader left behind an eternal legacy of unmatched physical bravery and supreme spiritual authority. She successfully balanced the complex politics of the medieval court with a life of pure religious devotion. Her life remains history's greatest example of ultimate female warrior power maintained through absolute divine confidence. From her quiet youth in the green pastures to her final legendary breath at Rouen, she was completely unmatched. She permanently redefined the boundaries of battlefield motivation and female leadership for many generations to come. Her complex military achievements and inspirational tactics are still studied by historical academics around the globe today. She remains an immortal icon of Western chivalry who chose raw combat glory over a quiet peasant lifestyle at every turn. The world will likely never see another female commander quite like the Maid of Orléans. Her memory continues to inspire millions of people through books, television, historical documentaries, and beautiful artwork. She began her life as a simple provincial daughter and ended it as a timeless legend of medieval history. Her legendary exploits remind us that true courage leaves a permanent mark upon the very culture of a nation. Smash that like button if you were blown away by this ancient legendary warrior maiden. Subscribe to Stickman Chronicles right now to join our growing community of history lovers. We upload brand new history videos every single day, so you never miss an epic tale. Leave a comment below letting us know which historical figure we should cover in our next video. Thank you so much for watching this deep dive into ancient warrior spirit. See you tomorrow for another wild story on Stickman Chronicles.